Hi, I'm Gabriel, and this is Learning English Path. And in this lesson, I'm going to teach you meta-learning, or why you should care about how to learn. Learning is knowing what. Meta-learning is knowing how to learn the what. Now, before I teach you this lesson on meta-learning, and before I tell you why you should care about how you learn, please subscribe. Subscribe to Learning English Path, because unlike other English teachers and unlike other English channels on YouTube, I teach you not just English, but how to learn English. And in so doing, I teach you how to learn anything in your life. And in doing that, I teach you how to form a deeper connection with life itself. So if that's what you're interested in, please subscribe. And if you like this video, if you get any value from it at all, please give it a like and comment. Now, this word meta, or this prefix meta, what does it mean? It comes from the ancient Greek for after, amidst, over, or above. Okay, all prepositions. So what does that mean in this context in today's modern world? Well, let me give you a few examples. A movie about making the movie. A painting which shows the painter painting the painting. This is meta. Meta is to consciously reference or comment on yourself, or when a piece of art consciously points to itself. When anything is consciously going back and pointing at itself, this is meta. So another example, metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. Right? Cognition means the way your brain works, the processes in your brain, right? So metacognition is thinking about thinking. Oh, I'm thinking. How am I thinking? Right? So what do you think meta-learning is? Well, you might just say, well, meta-learning is learning about learning. And you're close, but you're not quite there. Meta-learning is being aware of yourself in the process of learning something. So you are conscious that you are learning, and you are conscious of how you are learning something. Why is this important? Well, on this channel, Learning English Path, it's extremely important, because that is what I am all about. That is what we are doing here. That is what I am trying to engage you in. I'm trying to stimulate your meta-learning abilities, okay? Because guess what? Your learning English path is not something that you can see from the beginning. The beginning of the path, you are right in the middle of a forest. A thick, dark, dangerous forest. This is the beginning of your learning English path. So, as your teacher, I am not here to tell you exactly which trees to go through, exactly how many steps it's going to take for you to go where you're going. I'm not even telling you where you're going. I'm not saying you need to go north, you need to go south, east, west. I'm not saying 90 degrees and then turn right. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the principles to create your own path through the forest. I'm here to teach you how to climb a tree so that when you get to the top of a tree, you can look over at all of the trees and navigate the forest for yourself and plan a route, plan how you're going to go through the forest. I'm your guide for that. And again, by teaching you how to climb the tree, I cannot tell you, put your left hand up here, and then your right hand, and then your left leg, and then pull up, and then again. I can't tell you those steps either. Why? Because I don't know which tree you are climbing. I don't know what tree you want to climb. And I'm not going to tell you which tree you're going to climb. Because you are on your own path. And we all have our own forest. So my job is to guide you through the principles of how you can create your own path. And this is much more powerful because it means you are your own adventurer. I want you to be the explorer. I'm not going to hold your hand and show you the way through the forest. You are having the adventure. You are the hero on this journey, right? So with that in mind, let me tell you a story. This story is about two English learners. They're in school, and they're each starting the school year at the same time, on the same day, and the same school. But they're in different classes, so they have different teachers. Their names are John and Mary, the students, okay? John and Mary. Now, let's start with John's story. So John, it's the first day of school, and his English teacher teaches him 10 new vocabulary words, right? 10 new English words. And a grammar point. It doesn't matter which grammar point, any grammar point. Let's just say it's the present continuous. But it doesn't matter how advanced or how intermediate or how beginner these learners are. It really doesn't matter. And so John has this lesson, and his homework is to go home and memorize these words and this grammar point. So he goes home that night and he struggles, right? He tries to remember as many as he can, does his best, comes into school the next day, and he can remember 7 or 8 of those words. And the grammar point, he sometimes can say the right thing, but only using the same words that the teacher used in the example. So John makes mistakes when he's using the grammar point to talk about something else that he has not been taught, right? So throughout the week, his week's homework is to remember all these words. And eventually, after 1 week goes by, he's fine because he works hard and he studies. And so he remembers these 10 words and the grammar point. So in the second week, it's a whole new set of words, another 10 words, another grammar point, and goes through the same thing, struggles a little bit, but eventually memorizes them, right? Because he drills them into his mind. And then in the third week, the teacher is sick. So what do you think happens? They get some substitute teacher, and basically the substitute teacher says, well, one day the substitute teacher puts on a movie and another day just says, well, do what you want, just read the book and study, right? So most of the time, the students are just kind of looking at their book, not knowing what they're doing, and they just read repetitively. So the fourth week, the teacher comes back, and before moving on to another 10 words and another grammar point, John has to remember what he has forgotten about the other words and the other grammar points. Have to refresh that memory because he didn't really do anything that third week, right? And the weeks go on like this. And, you know, John's a decent student, but really the pace is pretty slow. It's pretty slow. Now let's take Mandy and the experience that Mandy is having in her English class. She has a different teacher. And instead, on the first day of school, instead of her learning 10 vocabulary words and a grammar point, what the teacher decides to do instead is teach only 5 vocabulary words and 1 principle of how to learn these words. So Mandy learns the 5 words, but at the same time, the teacher teaches Mandy the process of how to learn the words, right? Now, it doesn't matter what that process is. Maybe it's a game. Maybe it's something else. Some technique, some method. There are many. There are many, hundreds of techniques. And the teacher teaches Mandy 1 technique. And her homework is not to go home and memorize the words. Her homework is to go home and practice this 1 learning technique. And Mandy thinks this is exciting. It's fun. So she goes home and she does her homework. And she learns not just these 5 words, but she goes to school the next day having learned 25 words with this technique, because she has understood the process of learning these words and she's applied it. Took her just 2 hours, and she applied this process for for many different words, and she learned it. She learned all those words. So she goes into school the next day, and throughout that whole first week, they are practicing just this one learning method, just this one strategy. And so Mary becomes extremely good at this. And by the end of week 1, she's learned over 100 words. But more importantly, even than the 100 words she's learned, is that she's learned this learning principle. So the second week in Mandy's class, her teacher teaches her a grammar point, right? And a new learning method, a new principle for how to learn the grammar point. So, again, the second week, her homework is not just to memorize the grammar point. Her homework is to practice the principle of how she has learned the grammar, right? Because she's learned how to learn that grammar. And so what she does is she learns 3 grammar points that night using this learning strategy. Amazing. And poor John, at this point, he's just started to learn his second set of 10 words and his second grammar point, right? But Mary has managed to do something incredible. Now she's learned a second learning strategy too. And so that whole week, she's learning new grammar through this principle, using the 100 and plus words that she's learned in week 1, right? So she's reviewing those words not in a passive way, drilling it. She's reviewing those words using the grammar, and she's integrating it all, connecting it all, right? Through these learning strategies. And so week 3 comes by, and her teacher is also sick. Okay? Her teacher is sick in the 3rd week. I don't know, maybe there's a bug going around. Maybe lots of people are getting flu, right? So it's in the teacher staff room, right? So anyway, the teacher is sick, and that's no problem, right? Unlike John, who didn't learn anything in that 3rd week, she can continue learning. She doesn't need a teacher to continue to teach her, because she knows these learning principles. So what she does is she gets a book, or if it's a speaking technique, she practices with her friends in the class, right? And she continues to learn by herself in that 3rd week. So she learns even more. So by the time the 4th week comes by and her teacher is back, she's even further ahead. She doesn't need to review stuff like John, right? John needed to review a lot of things that he'd forgotten. Mary is beyond what level she was at when her teacher was sick. So the teacher needs to catch up and find out how much more Mary knows, right? So in that 4th week, her homework is this. Her homework is to find one way to improve the learning methods that the teacher taught her. So to look at that strategy that the teacher taught her and find one way to make it even better for her personally. How can she make the method even better? That's her homework. So she's really excited about this because there's not really a wrong answer. She's excited because she can do better than her teacher, right? That's her homework. Do better than me. And that's exciting. So she goes back to her home and she doesn't just find one way. She finds 3 ways of making the learning process even more personal for her so that she can learn better, right? So, who would you rather be, John or Mary? By the end of the school year, the tests come around, right? You've got these yearly tests. Well, before the tests happen, John, the way he studies is he's trying to remember everything that he's been taught in this year. He's going through all his paper. He's trying to remember this, that, and put it into his mind. Right? That's the way most decent students study. But Mary, what she is able to do by this point is plan her own study course, plan her own study path, schedule her studying, and evaluate herself each day. Evaluate, what could I have done better? How am I doing? Am I where I want to be? She asks herself all these questions and she plans her study, and she gets incredible results in her tests. Not only does she get incredible results in her tests, but she also uses this planning method, study planning method, to plan everything that she's going to learn this summer. Because you see, these results, these incredible results that she's had in her English class has also transferred into all her other classes. So she's become an excellent history student now. Mary did not particularly enjoy history before this school year, but now she loves it, and she aced that test too. And so over summer, she's planned the books she's going to read, the notes she's going to take. How is she going to take the notes from the books? She's planned how she's going to become better at swimming, and how she's going to become better at tennis. Sports. She's applied the same stuff to sports. Summer sports, right? And she's applied this to how she's going to become really good at playing the drums. She wants to learn the drums, okay? And the summer is a big success for her because she knows how to learn all of these things and how to make the most out of her life. John, it's not his fault that he didn't do as well in the tests. It's not his fault that he didn't have as fun of a summer. And it's not his fault that his English isn't as good as Mary's. It simply comes down to the fact that his teacher did not inspire him to learn how to learn. Whereas Mary's teacher taught her the techniques and principles to become a better learner. And that really excited Mary. It inspired her, right? Now that's what I want to give you. So what are the benefits? Let me go through what the benefits were for Mary. Okay, so you don't miss them. I mean, I think it's pretty clear, most of them, right? It's pretty clear what the benefits are. But let me give you an outline here. So the first one is that meta-learning allows you to learn independently, right? You can learn by yourself. You don't need someone else to teach you everything. You can do it when you're alone. You can do it without teachers. This is called learner autonomy. Learner autonomy. You have the freedom. You have the freedom to explore and learn and walk that path yourself. Okay? This is perhaps maybe the most important benefit of meta-learning. The next one, it gives you greater speed, and you can optimize your learning. You can maximize your ability to absorb new information, to educate yourself, right? So remember, Mary was able to learn 100 words that first week, even though her teacher had only taught her 5. But her teacher taught her 5 words and a method for learning new words. So what she did was she took that principle, that method, and she learned 100. Whereas John struggled to learn 10. Right? And, she was able to also calculate how to learn those words, right? Optimize her learning, maximize her potential. So the next one, meta-learning allows you to avoid problems or avoid failures sooner. So when you understand how to learn, you understand how to move away from what doesn't work, how to avoid the failures. When you're walking through a forest, if you haven't stepped over and looked at the ground, then you might not know that there is a pit of snakes down there, down that way. And you might walk into it and fall down, right? And hurt yourself and get bitten by snakes. But if you are able to look up from the top of a tree and see that ahead of time, you can avoid that. That's the same in learning, right? We all have obstacles. We all have challenges. And if we understand how we learn, we can avoid those challenges. That is why you should care about meta-learning. Next one, increased confidence. You see, John didn't really increase his confidence. He was learning at the rate his teacher was teaching him at, right? And the same rate as all the other students in the class, which is fine. But there was no reason for him to believe that he was doing exceptionally well. Whereas Mary, every day she was able to learn because she had the confidence that she could. She wasn't relying on someone else to tell her the information. She was confident that she could do it by herself, right? But don't confuse confidence with overconfidence. I'm not saying that you should give yourself insane standards and say you're going to learn 100 new words every week for the next year. Okay? Realistic standards too. You are able to be realistic and not overestimate your ability as well. Because you see, that's a problem. problem that people, if you don't understand how you learn, and if you don't understand your own individual capacity of learning, then you might overestimate something, and that's very dangerous. Why is that dangerous? Well, because if I say I'm going to learn 100 words this week, and I have no evidence that I'm able to do that, I don't know, I've never learned 100 words a week before, so I don't know that it can be done. But still, I say, I'm going to learn 100 words this week. And then let's say I only learn 75. I don't learn 100, I learn 75. Well, I might feel really bad about that. I might think, well, I didn't get my 100. And then the next week, I won't be as confident. And so I'll lack confidence and won't study as much. And then I'll fall and fall and fall. But if you understand how you learn, then you will not overestimate your abilities either. You'll have confidence, but realistic confidence. The next one, it gives you the ability to plan your own learning and prioritize what you're learning. So you see, Mary, once she developed the skills of planning and scheduling her own study, she was able to do it for her whole summer, right? With swimming, with reading, with drums. And she prioritized those skills in her life. She prioritized that education. And when you understand how you learn, you're able to prioritize what you want to learn. You're not able to do that as well if you don't understand how you learn, because you might think, well, what's best? Should I focus first on learning English and then only then work on the drums? And you don't know how to plan, so you don't know how to prioritize what you're learning. And that doesn't create a very fulfilling life, does it? Okay, the next one. You will be able to evaluate yourself, right? So after you have a day of learning something, you will be able to evaluate and analyze what you could have done better, right? Remember, her teacher's homework in the 4th week was find out how to improve for yourself, how to improve this method. And then Mary went and did that, and she found 3 improvements that she could make just in that week. And so she learned the valuable skill of evaluating herself. How good was she doing, and how could she make things better? Wouldn't you love to have that skill so that you continue to get better and better and better and better throughout your whole life? Very essential skill to have in life. The next one. You learn to experiment, right? There's something called test and learn. So you're testing how you're learning something. And it's about the mindset of knowing that this could fail, but that's okay. Because you're experimenting with something new, and if it works, then that's fantastic because you've got a new method to learn things with. But you're experimenting, so it might not work out, but even if it doesn't work out, all you have to do is try something new again, right? or do something that you already know works. See, the idea is to grow and keep growing, to keep walking the path. So this mindset of experimenting with your learning means that you can discover something great. You might discover something on your path that no one has ever discovered before, right? If you're in that forest and you go down a path, you create a path that nobody has ever gone down before, you might find some gold, my friend, right? The next one is that this kind of learning, meta-learning, creates a habit of forming deep connections. So you are forming a deep connection with the topic that you're learning, of course, but also within yourself. You see, you're making connections between the process of learning and what you're learning at the same time. So you're making all sorts of connections, and that is what learning is all about. Connecting A to B, and B to C, and A to Z, and the alphabet to the number system, and the number system to art, and art to science, and all of that to life itself, right? You're creating connections all the time. That forms a habit, an excellent habit. It's a snowball effect, right? So it starts up here of just learning about how you're learning English, but then you understand, oh, I can take this to other places too, right? And that brings us to our next benefit, which is this is transferable. Meta-learning is a transferable skill. That means it can be transferred into any topic. You can learn not only about how to learn language, you can also learn how to learn history, right? Like Mary did. You can learn how to learn sports. You can learn how your body moves. You can learn how to become a happier, healthy human being. You can learn how to give this gift of life to other people. You can learn so much just by learning how to learn. So it opens up new doors. It opens up new paths, new trees, new forests, new worlds. Okay? And it also has an interesting effect of enhancing your problem-solving skills. Because you see, what you're doing by learning how to learn is you are solving a problem. Believe it or not. The problem is the challenge of not knowing something, and you are pushing yourself to know something, right? So you are solving a problem, and this creates the ability, it helps to improve your ability of problem solving and critical thinking. Because you see, you're being critical of yourself and you're being critical of this learning method. And so you learn to be critical and to challenge different perspectives. But not only challenge other perspectives, it also develops your empathy, because you're able to see things from other perspectives. And because you're making all of these connections, right? Because you're transferring this skill to other areas and making all of these deep connections, it also enhances your creativity. So you become more creative. Do you see this? It's no longer a snowball. Now it's an avalanche. It's a whole avalanche of incredible skill crashing down into the forest of your life, the forest of your mind, which is now inhabited with incredible beings that you never would have discovered if you had never gone on that journey, on that hero's journey, on that path, right? And just two more. So this one, the penultimate one, the second to last benefit, is because you are being proactive in your learning, right? You're not being passive and waiting for someone else to teach you something. You are being proactive, right? You're going out and you're learning something for yourself. Because of that, that means that you are learning it all deeper as well. You see, there have been many studies that have shown, I don't know the studies off the top of my head right now, but there have been many studies that have shown that you learn something deeper and you remember it better if you are involved in the learning of it yourself. Right? You see, who do you think is able to tell you the Harry Potter stories the best? You know, you might have some crazy fans out there, but most likely the person who can best tell you the Harry Potter stories is J.K. Rowling. Why? Because she wrote the stories. She was actively involved in the process of creating those stories, right? She created it. She went through that process in a very deep way, so she remembers it a lot deeper than most people, okay? Like I said, you might have some people who are completely obsessed and read that story all the time. But you learn things deeper when you're involved in the investigation and the discovery and the adventure yourself. And the final benefit to meta-learning, why you should care about how you learn, is because when you learn how you learn, you learn more about yourself. It's an inner discovery process, right? You're exploring your internal self. You're exploring your nature, your psychology. Okay? And what could be more profound in life than that? Is there anything more meaningful in life than fully understanding your own consciousness and your connection with the world around you? Because that's what you're doing. You're connecting yourself, right? How you learn, you're connecting that with something else, a topic outside of yourself. So you are forming a connection between how you absorb the outside world. How are you connected with the world? How are you connected with the path? How are you the path itself? What is your connection with the forest, with the nature of this world? What is more valuable in life? So, my friend, if you haven't yet been convinced that meta learning is something that you should care about, if I haven't convinced you yet, then maybe this channel is not for you. But I do hope that I have illustrated to you that meta learning is something that you really need in your life, and something that you should take very seriously, something you can love, and something that you should care about. I'm Gabriel Wallace. This is Learning English Path. Keep learning and keep going.